Cancel culture is real. CrossPolitic is on the front lines of this battle with the goal of creating a Christian television network and platform where we can't be canceled and where content creators will have the freedom to glorify God. Our goal is to create a space for like-minded businesses to thrive on this platform and to reach an audience that will not only buy your products and services, but also support your business when the heat of cancel culture comes your way. We want our platform to help you create an anti-fragile business as we bring together Christians from all over the world to tune in. With millions of downloads a year, access to DirecTV, Xfinity, and social media outlets, we are excited to partner with you. So, if you own a business and believe in this vision, then you need to call me. I'm Garrison Hardy, and I am the Business Development Rep at CrossPolitic and the Fight Laugh Feast Network. We are looking for businesses, large or small, that not only have great products and services, but also understand that the cultural battle that is impacting the business climate here and now. I have a background in marketing, and I'd love to help you advertise your business on CrossPolitic. Give me a call at 208-792-1290 or email me at garrison@fightlaughfeast.com.
Yes. Hey, y'all. Welcome to CrossPolitic on the Midweek Fix. It's good to be with you guys.
It's kind of a midweek fix.
It is.
It's a part midweek fix. We don't have YouTube.
No.
Yeah, for real.
If you've been following my social media account this week, we got our first strike. So apparently, you get 3 strikes on YouTube.
Oh, is that right?
Okay.
Oh, we only have one?
We only have one, I know.
Have we even been trying?
But what's funny is they gave us a strike on a show that we did like 4 months ago.
Oh.
So if they really wanted to ban us, they could just go in the archives and
we could give 3 strikes. We could probably have 10 strikes.
Yeah, 20, whatever it is.
Paying attention.
And the
Facebook
show was
right
Government Incompetence. Our show on government incompetence, that was the title.
Okay. And they didn't like that.
And then they referenced WHO as their source of why we had misinformation on that show. And government incompetence. Irony? Does irony mean anything anymore?
No.
So we got 2 more strikes to go, and then we'll be off YouTube. That's also why we're doing our plug here in a minute.
We're doing a plug.
I don't see us on Facebook.
I just found us. We're on there. I just shared it. I shared it.
I'll try not to say anything today that gets you in trouble, guys.
Well, thank you.
First of all, we don't do that here.
But this is why Christians need to build their own platforms.
Right. Yeah, so we have this show is brought to you by Subsplash, which makes the Fight Laugh Feast Network app, which is where you can watch and listen to
and download our app,
our shows.
Yeah.
So they create apps for all major mobile platforms, so you have the power to stay connected with your community at all times, no matter where they're at. Features include events, blogs, sharing, push notifications, church messaging, audio, video content, new live streaming in the app. Hey, that's like us. Our show is live streaming in the app
right now.
Beautiful interface and more. Go to subsplash.com. Find out more. Also, don't forget to register for the conference. We're going to be in Nashville.
We're still getting a number of registrations every day.
In a couple of weeks, September 9th through the 11th, right outside of Nashville in Lebanon, Tennessee. Politics of Sex. Pastor Doug Wilson, Vodi Bacham, Doug TeNapel, David Bonson.
Yes.
We're going to be there.
Dennis Safarati, I was talking to him yesterday. Yeah. He's doing a SWAT talk with Rob and Zach Lattenschlager.
That's going to be fun.
And Dennis I was talking to him yesterday. He's like, man, I am so excited. I can't wait to be in Nashville.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm looking forward to seeing so many people there. It's going to be a party. And with us today, obviously, in the studio.
We have a guest.
Mrs. Janice McGeachin. Janice, former state representative, successful business owner from Idaho Falls, who along with her husband Jim own and operate multiple businesses in the automotive industry. She served as lieutenant governor for the last 3 years. Is that correct? Almost, nearly 2.5 years. Now running for governor of Idaho in the 2022 race. It says here in 2012, you and your family renovated a historic building in downtown Idaho Falls and established the area's only Irish restaurant.
Are you Irish?
I have some, yes.
Do you not know?
My mother, she's here with
Dorothy's
me today.
Irish.
Dorothy McAdoo.
All right.
It's a little bit of Irish.
McAdoo.
Do you still have the Celt pub and grill?
Yes, we do. Actually, this month we're celebrating our 9th year of being in business.
Nice.
Wow.
Yes, and it was funny. My husband likes to tease me. He says after serving for 10 years in the legislature, she had to do something to get her integrity back, so she opened up an Irish pub.
I just want to say right away that it's not fair that you brought your mom and dad here. I just want to say that.
We were going to go really hard on you.
It's not.
And then now that, Alan scares me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's packing heat right now.
You can't cheat like that.
She says, I brought my mom and dad.
Ask me all the questions you want with mom and dad right here. Right. It's not fair. Nobody does that.
Well, I've wised up to you guys.
For real. I mean, like, this is like now the, I don't know.
Fourth
time you've been on the show.
Yeah.
As we said to your folks before the show, I mean, and you came back.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
And before you jump into, I want to tell everybody right now who's watching on Facebook, download the app, like we said before. But also, since we have Lieutenant Governor here who's running for governor, we have a place where we can ask her questions right inside the comment thread.
Yeah.
Especially Idaho.
So if you're in Idaho,
I guess I gotta
or you know someone
monitor
who
that now.
is,
Yeah.
all the questions I'll be watching, ask them, and we'll go ahead and.
There you go.
She doesn't have anybody else here to vet questions, so I'm just going to put them out there.
Send her mom and dad.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
I love the questions. It makes me a better candidate.
There you go.
Very good. So, Lieutenant Governor, Representative, Kelt Pub and, Grill, I mean, isn't that enough? Why run for governor on top of everything else?
Yeah.
That's a great question, and it helps me explain the passion and the conviction that I have for the reason why I'm running. Idaho has been a traditionally conservative red state for so long, but that's changing, and I think people all over the state recognize that things are changing in our state. You don't have to look too far to realize that we're losing our freedoms. We're losing our freedoms, our liberties, and no one knows that more than my friend Gabriel here, who was arrested for singing hymns here in Moscow, Idaho. We're losing our freedoms, our liberties. We're losing the sovereignty of our own state, and our traditional conservative values are being eroded day by day. And those are the reasons why I've decided to put my hat in to run for governor, because I can't just go home and say that I didn't give a chance to help turn things around. And for too long, the good old boys in Boise have been having the power, too much power to control the agenda, make things work for special interests and not for the interest of the everyday Idahoan. And you can tell that I'm not part of I'm not one of those good old boys.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I want to help.
You're not even one of the good old girls.
What?
Those are bad guys. You're just Janice from Southern Idaho.
I am, and
I don't mean just, but that's the point is you've been living, working here in the state, and you know what normal people in Idaho need, value.
I listen. That's the difference between me and the current governor is I listen to the people and the voice of the people that are. There's thousands of people that are crying out right now with the things that are happening in our state, with our state being shut down, businesses shut down, shuttered, many of them gone, no longer in existence. Yeah. The shutdown of the businesses was so destructive, and there's another word.
Disruptive.
Exactly. You were reading my mind. It was disruptive and it was destructive. I mean, even today we have businesses are struggling to find employees. Yeah, we aren't getting our supplies that we need. It's just been.
What is the number one complaint that you're hearing coming from people in Idaho? As you're talking, because you're going around, you're talking to everybody. What is it that you're hearing coming from them? The number one thing that keeps resonating over and over again.
Well, right now, of course, what's happening where in the Treasure Valley and the Magic Valley, where the three major hospitals have put a mandate out that for their employees that if they do not receive the vaccination, they will be fired as of September 1. So this is just a culmination of all the violations of our freedoms and our liberties for the past 18 months. And I think people are fed up. They're fed up.
Yeah.
They're done with it.
So
and they're standing up against
why do you think
all these things.
Why are our freedoms eroding so quickly? I mean, why is this happening? You think of Idaho as being a traditionally conservative state, Christian values,
We have a Republican governor.
Do we?
By name.
But why are our freedoms eroding so much? Why is it being taken away so quickly?
There's been a concerted effort over a long period of time, I believe, to lay the foundation to change the face of America into something that is not what our founding fathers and what God intended for our nation. We're blessed to be living in this country, and the principles of freedom, liberty, equality, and justice for all is a very unique form of government for all of humanity, all of humankind. And there are enemies that are against that want to change that. And the foundation has been laid, as I said, for decades, and we're seeing it all just culminate right now. And it's more than just what's happening with COVID. It's what we see happening in our educational system.
So I agree with you on that answer, but it seems like conservatives don't even really want to go beyond that answer. Meaning that I don't think conservatives really want the true solutions in all this. For example, I go through. There's a number of things, but like the top things on my list would be, public school system is just educating liberals. Property taxes mean I don't really own my home. I mean, there's a number of hot button issues that conservatives don't even really want to talk about. Including our public school system. If the Republican Party doesn't have a solution for the public school system, then we will go liberal, because that's what this public school system does, is disciple liberals. And I've brought this up with a number of state leaders here in Idaho. And when I bring up the public school education system, they're like, yeah, we need to figure out how to support them and do our best and maybe get critical race theory out, whatever they mean by that. But ultimately, the problem is we don't really want the real solution, which is actually disbanding of public education. When we have public education, we immediately politicize it, and then you're on the road to liberalism from the jump.
The real solution is for the heart of America to turn back to God.
Amen.
And it's the corrosion of our.
You're not going to give her an organ for that?
I wanted to see where the rest of this goes.
Okay.
I'm
all right. Okay.
The destruction of our family, the traditional family, and the problems that we have in our society are all stem from this, and that's really the 100%. Ultimate solution that we need to have our people turn back to God.
With that in view, and you understand that very clearly, I can't agree with you more than that. As a governor, how is your responsibilities and that? How do they marry?
Turning back to God and governor.
If
you're a governor, how would you help Idaho turn back to God?
Well, I mean, living the way I live my life is setting an example is a big part of that. But another part of that is, let's just talk about the issue of the refugee resettlement program in Idaho that our governor participates in. I would say it's ungodly because it's an NGO, a national governmental organization, which accepts money from the federal government. They monitor the people for about 90 days, and then they just let them loose into the community, whether these people can communicate effectively within our communities, whether they have a place to live, whether they have a job, whether they have clothes on their back. That's not godly. What we could do is we could set another example and say, if we are going to bring people into our community and help resettle refugees, there will be proper vetting that takes place first of all, and then we must find Idaho families that are willing to bring them into their home and help care for them and help assimilate them into the community. That is a godly and a loving way to approach and deal with these challenges that we face, rather than the just constantly turning to the government problem.
I think if I was governor for a day,
this ain't about you, Gabe.
I know. I always do this. Did you know I was arrested for
I've heard. Someone told me.
I would pardon you if I was the governor.
Thank you. Look at that. Look at that now.
Good score.
I think the two things I would do in regards to leading our state in repentance would be, one is use the bully pulpit in a good way and say, look, Idaho's a Christian state. It's in our documents,
right?
And so this is just who we are. This is our DNA, and this is how we're going to govern our state, and this is how we're going to live. Non-Christian Democrats would love for you to be here. Thank you, but this is who we are. The number two is, I think I would figure out some way to not make this political and not do this in a way where the publican is going before and raising his hands in prayer. But I would want to do like a state day of repentance. Some sort of all the churches. We're gonna, this is Wednesday evening. We're gonna do churches across the state of Idaho. We're gonna pray for our state and we're gonna repent of our sins, abortion, all these things, and somehow do something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
It's good. Yeah.
A couple of other ideas as setting examples. With this COVID situation, I was in Coeur d'Alene yesterday, and I met with area pastors and that represent 16 of the evangelical churches up there. And there's such growing opposition to this vaccination mandate. And what the Candlelight Fellowship has done as a congregation, as they made a resolution that for any person that loses their job over this, they want to help the families financially. They're going to cover their mortgages, help pay for food, gas, utilities for up to 3 months so that they can help resolve. That's what we need. That's good because we're turning back to our faith community. Candlelight Fellowship.
In Coeur d'Alene.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that the
I know those guys.
Yeah.
So turning back to the faith community, to our community, rather than always looking to government for the solution. And on education, another thing that I discovered over this experience I've had, there's a charter school in Fruitland that follows the charter of the Hillsdale College. And they're operating, they're successful. I went to one of their conventions and it was amazing what they were teaching. Great thinking and philosophy. Well, there's a board that's trying to form the Hillsdale Charter School up in Coeur d'Alene as well. And when I was at that convention, I met the board members, and they had just been denied their charter application from the Charter Commission in Idaho. And I was shocked. Why are they turning these charters down? And the board members told me that day they felt like they were being turned down because the board somehow thought they were affiliated with a religious organization. And that's ridiculous, and that's so.
But I would say that's the problem with public education is they think you cannot be affiliated with the religious organization.
That's the problem with the State Board of Education and the leadership that we have. The governor appoints those board members. The board members appoint that charter commission. So it's a leadership issue.
And I think something that needs, and some of it's a doctrinal issue too. I don't think parents are aware that training their children are their responsibility, not the government's responsibility. Right. These are your kids. This is one of the things that's kind of driving me nuts right now, Lieutenant Governor, about what I see happen. I'm grateful that parents are standing up and speaking out at these school board meetings. But the problem I have is that they still have the foundations completely backwards. I don't get to ask you what you're going to do with my kids. These are my kids. I'm going to tell you.
But this is the thing, though, is where's the money coming from?
Right.
Is whoever's writing the check ultimately
gets
to decide. And so it's sad when you get used to the government providing education for your kids. They're paying the salaries for those teachers, so they get to decide. Now, that's right. They should they represent the people better? Sure, of course. And should they stop pulling us in completely different direction? Yes, they should. But the fact is if you send them your money, which they require you to do in property taxes, and then they run the schools, they get to run the schools.
But they're not even designed.
And mom and dad are just shouting. And that's all they are.
And I think we're just slaves. Yeah, I mean, we're slaves asking master, change the curriculum conditions. I think what you want to do is you want to set them free, and that means freedom to choose how you want to spend your money.
Absolutely.
And I know that public education is actually written into the Idaho Constitution. Yeah. So we're fighting an uphill battle here. Right. I think that was a massive mistake. But given that, I think the next best thing would be to set people free and say, if you would like to use these public schools, then you can send your money to this, and then do your best to hold them accountable to the things you want taught there. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. I mean, right now, I pay 2 tuitions. I send my kids to a Christian school here in town. And then I also send my property taxes off to Boise or Latah County or whatever to pay for public schools that I have never used one day in my life. I kind of resent that. You know, like,
you mean getting robbed?
I'm paying for, you know, education I don't even believe in twice.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and this is where the Republican Party doesn't want to have this conversation.
And I want.
Some of them do. Some of us do.
Okay, because that's what we need. Is I think we need at least let it, like, turn it into like a little bit of a free market.
Absolutely.
You know, and
yes.
and if. You know, if they have to compete, but right now they don't have to compete because it's socialized.
Required.
I mean, this is what government education is. This is one of the tenets of Marx, was to establish government schools, and it's like Republicans, hello,
right?
Like we want
You're fighting about critical race theory right now.
Yeah, it's like you want to get rid of
on the foundation of a socialist school.
Exactly. That's the irony of it all. It's like you want to get Marx out of the schools. That means you need to get the schools out of your state. I mean, that's Marx. Yep. I mean, to have government schools is to implement one of Marx's platform points.
Well, a healthy dose of competition will help rise all boats. That's
right.
We know that when we're in business. And so we have to ask, that's a fair question. Why, being such a red Republican state, why do we not have true choice in Idaho?
Right.
Why can we not have ideas like what the state of Arizona has, it where the dollars follow the student?
Right. So they have vouchers already, or whatever they call it.
I don't know if it's a voucher or a credit, but they do have.
There's several different
interesting
forms of that going on, and I think if the more we can make it a free enterprise system and there can be real competition, I think that's going to be better for everybody.
That's why we need change in Idaho.
Yeah, so let's say that this is first. There's a couple things I have a question about, because this seems like a very bold move that you're doing. You're coming out against another Republican governor, leaving the lieutenant's desk to go run for governor. That's a really bold move, because you're wondering, like, are you going to have the backing that you need from the Republican Party even to be able to challenge Governor Little?
Well, our Republican Party, some counties don't like to endorse candidates during the primary. I've had 3 counties that so far have endorsed my campaign. But I would also say that our party is very split right now.
Yeah.
Split down the middle. Our chair that was voted on last year,
Tom Luna,
he only won by a couple votes. So
like 5 votes or something,
it's
10
split,
votes. Yeah.
And I think my chances are good. It's definitely going to be a challenge. But we're building a statewide campaign, and we have a strong winning message. And look, no question about it. I mean, people have asked, why are you challenging an incumbent sitting governor?
Right.
Why are you doing this now? Why don't you wait 4 more years, and wait for your turn to come in line? Well, I think in the next 4 years it's too late. We need to take a stand today, and we need to work together to start riding our ship today.
So let's say that everyone sees you and is like, you know what? Okay, it's your turn. You get inside the seat to be governor. What are the first 3 things that you do as a governor?
I'm going to end the emergency order.
Which is still.
Are we still in an emergency?
It's still accessible.
I'm going to get us out of the COVID FEMA agreement with the federal government, because that is the thing that is enabling a lot of these things to still take place. And when we accept that money, then we must do it the way the federal government. It comes with the strings attached.
Give an example of how that's operate. Go ahead.
For example, we take that federal money and we're using $30 million of that federal money to test kids for COVID in schools.
Yep, exactly. And this whole vaccine mandate is a rule from the Biden administration. It's a 700-page rule that's coming down, where they're trying to implement their will on us as people, and they're doing it through the funding mechanism.
Right.
So you say, you
take this money, and here's the strings that are attached.
Yep. If you have 100% compliance with vaccination, we're going to pay you more money.
Oh,
that's
bribery.
That's what they're doing with us right now?
We're getting bribed.
Yes.
No way.
That's
inside of FEMA. That's kind of the FEMA setup?
This is under the Medicare and Medicaid system of reimbursement for the healthcare facilities. Now, on the FEMA, this is something. Remember on August 13th when Department of Homeland Security put out a list of new domestic terrorist threats?
Yes.
We
reported
unvaccinated.
We reported that.
Ended up on that, right?
You were on there?
No, the unvaccinated. The unvaccinated ended up.
And Gay Brinch.
For psalm singing.
I wouldn't be surprised, actually.
Well, those states that are investigating election integrity are listed on there. Those people who push back against COVID recommendations are on there. And then there's a FEMA grant. I found that this FEMA grant, that if the states accept this FEMA grant, they are required to spend 7.5% of that grant funding battling these domestic terrorists.
Wow.
FEMA.
So we're finding out whether the state of Idaho is participating in that or not. But as I said, under a McGeachin administration, we will not be participating in those kinds of things.
Wow.
But that means Idaho would lose money.
Yeah.
Oh, sad.
Oh, yes.
You mean we'd lose some of that debt?
Yeah.
You know, I'm so tired of these politicians and the good old boys saying, "Oh, we got to get us some of that money." You know, that's if we don't get it, it's going to go to some other state. That's not how it is. It's debt that we're pushing onto our kids.
Have you thought about?
It's not money.
One of the other places where this is going on is you've got the all the federal lands in our state.
Yeah.
We've talked to a number of conservatives who have pointed out the fact that, is it a third of our budget is built off of federal monies, like sort of leasing back the land that they stole from us?
Yep, at least. When I was campaigning for lieutenant governor at that time, 4 years ago, we were at 36%
right.
of our budget came from the federal government. Wow. Then we had Medicaid expansion and all of this money from COVID coming in.
Right, so it's probably higher now.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure
Which
it's
is
over 40%, 45 maybe, I don't know.
So
which is why we have a $900 billion surplus right now that Governor Little was bragging about. Was because of all the federal funds that flowed into our state this last year.
That the government stole from our grandkids.
One of our friends said, I asked him the question, this was one of my favorite questions to ask, if you're governor for a day, what would you do in Idaho? And he said, I would confiscate all the federal lands and give them to the Indian reservations where we broke treaties 150 years ago. And what I liked about that was, for one, you can identify which treaties we broke, so you can objectively identify which treaties
which tribes.
Which tribes.
Yeah.
And then you can, and you're claiming states' rights, saying, hey, we're taking our land and we're going to give them to the Indian reservations where we wronged them. Reparations.
Popular right now.
This is and what that does is that puts the federal government in a position to take the land from the Indians again. Right? And
y'all really gonna do that?
And so you're really gonna confiscate the land from the Indians again. But what this does is it claims states' rights. It makes a wrong. It rights a wrong. And it puts the federal government, it checks the federal government in a way that I think needs to be checked.
It also puts the land back in the hands of real Idahoans. Yep. And they to be developed.
That's an interesting. Where did you hear this from?
My buddy Nate, he's here in town. We should talk after the. I'll hook you up. He's a smart dude. But I actually think that's a good play because it actually inverts critical race theory.
It's so hard for the liberals to object to it. Well, you can't give it back to the Indians that you stole it from.
Well,
really?
Why not?
And then it's all our land again. Yeah. And it's productive land in the state of Idaho.
Right? And that's the thing I want to say. So you have these people who are made in the image of God, who have this land, who can produce goods from it for the state of Idaho that the federal government isn't doing.
Absolutely.
It's just burning.
Yes. Well, and when the Native Americans, that's how I like to refer to them, when they managed the land, they did it in a responsible way. They cleared the brush and the shrubs so that we wouldn't have these massive fires like we have today.
Yep.
Right now, inside of South Dakota, the governor Christine Nome, I think you reported on it in the news brief today. She came out and said that she was not going to force companies not to vaccine.
So she signed an executive order in the state of South Dakota saying that, hey, my government organizations can't force vaccinations.
Okay.
And she said, at the same time, I don't have the authority over businesses to tell them what to do. And I can't tell them to require vaccinations or not require vaccinations. Yeah. That's a business.
I don't have an authority
decision.
over a business to do that.
It's a private business,
and it's private business, which I think she's the only governor in the state
made that distinction
in the U.S. that's made that distinction, which I think is a biblical distinction, and one of the clear thinking governors thinking actually about what authority she has and doesn't have over businesses. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's a legitimate position, but I say, and I agree that it's not the role of government to place additional restrictions and regulations on business. But what people may not know is, if you really say that, first of all, we have laws on our books today that makes it illegal to coerce an employee, and it makes it illegal for the employer to coerce an employee for a behavior as a condition of employment. Now, this is specifically related to our right to work law, but the legislative intent is the same, and it's there. So we don't have to create new laws. Why don't we just enforce the existing laws that we have? That the intent of that is that the employer may not coerce an employee as a condition of employment.
What if I, as our studios, we're a Christian-run studio here, and an employee is smoking weed at night, not on our premises, but that's a behavior that we don't even want our employees participating outside of our company. Yeah, can we do that?
Absolutely, yes.
It seems like that right to work law would contradict that.
Well, I think you have to just also consider to what, and these are complex issues. I recognize that, but also when it comes to protecting the health and the rights of the individual and our ability to make decisions for ourselves, where do you draw the line? With that same premise, if you're a business and you don't want one of your female employees to go through with a pregnancy and she becomes pregnant, does that mean that you as a business has a right to tell her that she must receive an abortion in order to continue working?
No, but
where do you draw the line?
But you can say, you know what, for the type of work that we're doing and what we're trying to do, pregnant women are not people who we hire here, right? So a company can choose to do that, and then she can say, I never want to work for a group of people who don't value pregnant women, right? So they can choose to make those decisions, but the issue is whether or not the government has a responsibility. In that conversation, the conversation is between the individual and the company, not between the government, the individual, and the company. They're inserting themselves inside of the situation that they shouldn't be in at all. Whatever the case is, right? So if they say, hey, we don't want to hire black people because the people we serve aren't really that interested in black people. It's like, well, I'm not going to say, well, you have to hire me now because I'm so excited about working for a company.
You really want to work for them.
Right? Some of the things that, that's still, again, wrong as it is.
It's a sin.
It's a
100%.
sin, absolutely. But it's not the government's responsibility to say you must hire them now, right? And so to say, like, if I have a company that is, now listen, I'm not a vaccine dude at all. That's not me. I'm not going for it.
He's a herbal weird
I'm a
guy,
natural. I'm a naturalist. I'm a little herbalist on that. And some vaccines, I've had some, so that's not an issue. But what's happening now, I'm not in that. But I don't want to create a situation where, like what DeSantis is doing in Florida, opens the door for someone else who is not necessarily on our team to do the exact same thing on the opposite side.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
That's what I'm concerned with.
Well, and you want laws that require people to keep their contracts. It seems to me that's the key thing.
Yeah.
What the government's job is to make sure people are being honest, which means they keep their word. They
don't break contract.
And they don't break contract. That part is I'm 100% behind. But all they're doing is reading the contract and saying, here is the terms under which you agreed to this. You signed your name, and if you break those terms, then it's legitimate for you to be fired. That seems legit. And then each person can figure out those contract terms on their own on a case by case basis. And if one company wants to be more strict or wants to follow the CDC regulations or whatever, then you sign up and you agree to that. And if you don't want to do that, then don't take the job, find another employer. But you don't want the government telling the employers or the employees really under what conditions they have to work or not. But we have been doing that for a number of decades, which then invites this overreach when it comes to health and safety, so-called, with regard to whatever, vaccines or masks.
Well, when we operate in a true free market, which in most business we do, and if an employer wants to require that and an employee says, no, I don't want to do that, and I'm going to just go down the road and work for your competitor, that's fine. That works. But in the case with these healthcare providers, it's not a true free market.
Right.
And I would say the high majority of money that they receive
from the government
comes from the taxpayer.
Here we go. Back to socialism.
Yes, so
that's a good point. And so what we're fighting with right now, we're fighting over, well, since you're getting the money, who gets to make the decisions, right? If the money's coming in and it's not truly a free market, we're saying who gets to hold the reins. So how do we break that apart?
Well, the government is holding the reins because with these hospitals, if 60% or 70% of the revenue the hospitals receive comes from you and I, the taxpayer, the government is holding the reins there. And so I see no distinction between what's happening there with the hospitals and what Kristi Noem and even Governor Little said here in Idaho, that we're not going to require the state employees to receive a vaccination, and we're not going to require a person coming into an agency who's seeking services to have a vaccine. What's the difference? Why is it okay for them to say that there but not there?
Right. That's good.
And
That's good.
and again, I have not advocated for more regulations and more restrictions on business, but we have so many regulations on these healthcare facilities. And at least I'm willing to have the conversation, the tough discussions, which the leadership in Idaho now is tone deaf, and they simply don't want to have the discussion.
Right.
So before we go, the last thing I want to ask you, unless you guys have another question, but the last thing I want to ask you, could you paint right now, if you don't win the governorship right now and you see the next 4 years for Idaho, what does that look like?
Well, I see that we're going to continue going down this path of tyranny where we're losing more and more of our freedoms, and Idaho, the face of Idaho will change and will turn from being a free and red state to being like Colorado, where who knows what's going to come next in our state. That's what I see happening, and that's why I'm standing up and running for this position. And I am listening to the voice of thousands and thousands of people of Idaho that are pushing back. A lot of people complain about the people that are moving into our state from California, and other states, but most of the ones I talk to are here because they have fled their states, and they are some of the ones that are most convicted to protect what we have, whereas some of the others that have been comfortable in our state and cozy are just maybe starting to wake up.
And here's the deal. I think I said this to you before. I really do believe that in Idaho we're at a Y in the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either Idahoans believe that Governor Little's unconstitutional emergency order, him shutting down businesses, that order that shut down churches.
You're not essential.
And it shut down churches until me and a bunch of buddies sued the state.
Right.
And can he suspend the Constitution for a year now because the emergency order is still in play? And can
if we reelect him, you're saying we would like you to do that again.
Yeah, we're at a Y in the road, and this is one of the most important. Sorry, this is one of the most important elections I think in the history of Idaho. In the history of Idaho.
Unfortunately for the people of Idaho, if we continue down this path, we will see efforts to keep people under the thumb like that. They'll work to depress the productivity and the opportunity of the individual, and the people will become more dependent on the government. We will see an increase in crime in our state and in our cities like we see in other major cities. And that would be a sad day, and that's why I am running, and there are others good ones that are running to
a great way to know how she would act as a governor is what she did when she was a governor for the day. Remember that? What'd you do?
When you're a governor for a day? Because in Idaho, if the governor leaves the state, the lieutenant governor becomes the governor for the day. What did you do?
Yeah, he hasn't been keeping me too informed. He doesn't like to let me know when he's leaving the state.
But tell our audience what you did when you're governor for a day.
By the Constitution, it says when the governor is out of the state, the lieutenant governor has all the authority that rests with the governor. And so I issued an executive order to prohibit a mask mandate on any level. And I did that.
Throughout the state?
Throughout the state, yes. Because we saw it.
Yes.
And it was happening in
it did it here in Moscow.
Our little kids.
Yeah.
And so in order to expose the hypocrisy and free people up, increase people's freedoms and liberties. That's why I did it.
And then he rescinded it when he got back.
The next day, yeah.
It was a glorious 24 hours, though, to live in the state of Idaho. when we were mask-free throughout the state.
Janice, what's your website?
JaniceForIdaho.com.
Okay, all right.
Check it out. Follow Janice. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
It's always great.
Yeah.
And the parents.
Fourth time. Yeah. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. If you have, by the way, you got to get off of YouTube. We're off of YouTube.
We've been for a week.
We're suspended for a week, but
so download the app where you can stream all of our shows.
And if you have kids, go baptize them until Sunday. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics. Do you know where you're going to be at September 9th through 11th? I do. You're going to be in Lebanon, Tennessee at the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference on the politics of sex.
Ooh, okay. All right. Well, do you know why you're going to be in Lebanon, Tennessee at the Politics of Sex conference?
I just
Country music center of the world.
No, because if we don't get God's design ordered rightly in our lives, male, female, family, culture, marriage, the politics of sex, what we're talking about. If we don't get this right, well, we're going to get what we got right here, right now, in this culture, which is hell-bent on destroying itself.
Yeah, you know why else you're going to go?
Why?
Voddie's going to be there.
Hey!
David Bonson, Pastor Doug Wilson.
Yes.
You guys going to be there?
I'm going to be there.
Uncle Gary's going to be there. C.R. Wiley's going to be there. Ben Merkel's going to be there. Everybody.
That's more than Fab Five.
We got SWAT talks all day Saturday. I mean, everybody from the Fight Laugh Feast Network's going to be there.
Oh, and I'm looking forward to the psalm singing, the ruckus psalm singing, and the Holy Ghost speaking in tongues.
Whoa.
No?
We're not doing that?
No, we're not doing that.
Next conference.
Go to FLFnetwork.com, click on events, and register now. There's also a link down in the show notes. Just go down there, scroll down, find it. It's right around there somewhere. Right there. Yeah.
What if we have a translator for the tongues?
No.